Peter Pan Production. Peter Pan Production, Ben Anderson.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, this was going to be the most memorable, entertaining production of Peter Pan this town had ever seen. Or at least that was the goal of the director. She was a high school student from the small town of Kentucky. She was going to have her production at the local college. There was going to be a big cast, an elaborate set. There was even a rumor that she was going to rent flying cables from New York City so that her actors could soar above the stage. Before long was opening night, and the seats were packed. The opening scene was Peter Pan coming through the window of the children's bedroom and telling them that all they needed to fly was a little fairy dust. And they flew out of their beds. But you wouldn't really call it flying. It was evident that the people controlling the flying cables didn't quite get enough practice, and the actors kind of lurched up out of their beds and were dangling there like spiders from a web. Then they would be jerked in horizontal and vertical directions. One of the kids started a spiral pattern that kept getting bigger and bigger until eventually he ran into the stage prop that knocked it over. This ended up being the end of the scene. The audience at this point was fairly forgiving. Maybe this wasn't the best opening scene in the world, but the actors could redeem themselves. A couple of scenes later, Captain Hook was on stage. He was looking good. He had a big pirate hat, an eye patch, fake mustache, big coat, big black boots. He was giving a great speech about how angry he was, how he didn't like the Lost Boys or kids in general. He was gesturing wildly, and then all of a sudden, his hook flew off his hand along with the sleeve up to his elbow and hit an old lady in the stomach. Now Captain Hook is standing on stage with 2 hands and 10 fingers and tells the audience, well, don't make those hooks like they used to, and walks off stage. Now the audience can't hold it in any longer. Laughter overtakes the crowd. This marks a fundamental shift between when the audience really wanted the actors to succeed to now when they couldn't wait for the next mistake. And the show didn't disappoint. One blunder to the next led them to one of the final scenes, which was a battle between the pirates, the Lost Boys, and the Indians. The scene opened with the Lost Boys flying in from stage left and crash landing onto the ground. They were then dragged across the floor like mops until they ran into part of the set that fell on top of them. The next part of the scene, the director really wanted to get the audience involved, so the Indians were going to drop rope ladders from the rafters, climb down, and run through the aisles between the seats. One of the kids lost their footing and dropped 20 feet to the ground below, sprained both his ankles. He was yelling out in pain, everything stopped. People crowded around to make sure it was okay. One person was so concerned they pulled the fire alarm. Now, this is a small town in Kentucky, and the fire alarm actually activates an air raid siren on top of the building that can be heard for 5 miles in all directions. It's so loud you can't even hear yourself talk. Meanwhile, the director's trying to rally her actors together because the show must go on. The fire department bursts through the door, their axe in hand, all their fire gear, they don't know what's going on. Eventually things start to calm down. People can tell that the kid's going to be okay, and there's no way the show can recover. People start to clap. They start to cheer. They're up on their feet. They're giving a standing ovation because there's no better ending to this show than air raid siren and the fire department bursting through the door. Now at this point, if you're the director, you may be thinking to yourself, this show was a complete and utter disaster. But if the goal of the director was to make the most memorable, entertaining production of Peter Pan this town had ever seen, maybe she succeeded better than she ever could if things had gone to plan. Before I conclude, I'd like to give thanks to the good people at NPR and National and This American Life for giving me inspiration for this speech. And I'd like to leave you all with a challenge. Next time you run into a situation where your plans don't go quite like they expect, maybe they even get a little chaotic, try and look at the glass as half full. Because hey, we still have a story to tell.